From our perspective, looks at the lives and behaviors of millennials, Generation Z, and the changes that are happening in our 21st century and the innovators that are making it happen. We will explore trends, technology, music, fashion, social media, business, science, the arts, faith, and lifestyle. So come join us on Comcast, Verizon, and online. What do you see when you see me? My disability, my weight, my physical appearance, not meeting your standard of beauty. What do you see when you see me? Shamed for being overweight? Does my self-esteem rely on what you think of me? My confidence, respect, morale, self-worth should not depend on the voices of those outside of me. Even those who know me may say things that hurt, that may be judgmental. When I look in the mirror, I see the words, I am beautiful. Is my self-esteem wrapped up in how others see me? What do you see when you see me? Do you see me at all? Being bullied by my peers? What do you see?
And I'm 33 years old. I got burned from a candle when I was 11 months old, and by the time my mom found me, it was a 70 Celsius fire. By the time she picked me up from the bed, my right hand literally stayed behind. And from the age of 11 months until I was around 15 years, I've had 104 surgeries just to make me look like this, honey. Yes. I was 9 years old, and a fellow learner of mine said to me that, you're so burnt, you look like a franchise meat. It really just touched me really deep. Then it started to trend to a point where I then started having an extremely low self-esteem. I just felt like, I'm a ghost, and I don't belong, and, I don't want to be here, can I just die? I drank 300 pills. A couple of hours later, katsoga on the very same bed. No phone, no pain, no nothing. I was so annoyed. My God said to me that you have a purpose, and your purpose is hope and healing. But also more than that, you're important, you're beautiful. And that's where I found my self-worth from. I would say to the young me, there was a candle that tried to burn you. That candle tried to ruin you. That candle tried to kill you. But that very same candle lives within you. And that candle is shining bright. So allow it to shine bright. Then light other people's lives.
We live in a world of comparison. How we look, what we wear, what we drive, where we live, our intelligence, our age, and our ethnic background. The media plays a huge part in keeping up this narrative. The cosmetic and fashion industry are trillion-dollar businesses, and the upward trend is not expected to die anytime soon. Online purchases are the highest in history, especially since the pandemic. Social media influencers, artificial intelligence, the meta world, online gaming have all helped in creating the appetite for more of the latest in gadgets, fashion, cosmetics, and wealth. And those who don't have it or can't afford it feel less than. We are judged so quickly by appearances. Few take time to know us, to understand who we are and where we come from. We can feel invisible.
My name is Michelle, and this is my story. So when I was 16, I was pretty wild. My mom wasn't home a lot, and I was an only child, so I would party with friends and hang out of the house all hours of the night. And one night I had met this guy, and he was 29 when I met him, and I mean, he was great. All the girls were jealous. My own friends were kind of mad that he'd been so interested in me, but he was able to give me experiences. I mean, other guys my age couldn't. He would take me out all the time. We'd go to expensive restaurants. He'd buy me these gifts, and it was really great. But he would always remind me of all the things that he would do for me. So if there was any time where I felt like I wasn't hanging out with my own friends the same way that I was with him, he would say, "Oh, but I got you this necklace, so don't you think you should spend the time with me?" And I just felt so guilty. I kind of stopped hanging around my friends as much. But it was great because he was there for me. I mean, he would pick me up and take me to school, pick me up from school. And when I had said that I'd felt kind of lonely in my house, he let me come stay with him. So I spent most of that year in his house. And I remember I'd gone to school and I'd seen some of my friends whispering and I was mad about it, and came back and I told him, and he'd said that he'd heard that they were saying really nasty things about me around town, that I was a gold digger and that I was ugly and stupid for hanging out with him, and he told me they were jealous. So after that, I really stopped talking and hanging out with them and spent even more time with him. And I mean, we were closer than I had been to anyone. I didn't feel as alone as I had normally felt. And so we started sleeping together. I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I hadn't been with anybody, and he made me feel so safe. And he would buy me things anytime I felt bad about it, or if I felt like I needed to talk to someone, he would be there. I mean, he was just everything. And a couple months down the line, I realized one night that I hadn't had my period in a while, and found out I was pregnant. And he was so pissed. He was so mad at me, and he was throwing my stuff in the trash and hitting the wall and telling me that I wasn't careful and I didn't appreciate all the things that he had done for me, because I was excited about it and I wanted to keep this child, and he didn't. So he told me that he would leave me if I kept it. I went home that night and my mom was there, and I told her, and I thought she'd be mad at me, but she wasn't mad at me, and she talked me through it. And I mean, I kept him. My son is 2 now. One day Eric tried to come back and tell me how sorry he was, but my mom called the cops, and he was never to be seen again. She told me that I wasn't alone and that I didn't have to depend on anyone else. She'd always be there for me.
When you was put on the eat for, what's your views on that, man?
Boy, to tell you the truth, this is something I thought about for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, but for me, I think purpose always starts with a journey, right?
Yeah.
Like, people talk about just jumping into purpose, but yeah, I feel you have to look for it first, you know, and that journey, it could start in a bunch of different ways. For me, that was a crazy journey.
Sure.
At the beginning. Like, let me tell you a story.
Tell
Right?
me.
I'll tell you a story
Tell me.
about my journey.
Your journey?
Yeah, to find purpose. But I can tell you the truth, it wasn't a nice journey. To tell you the truth.
Well, tell me the story now.
Alright, I'll tell you the story. Just listen.
Listen.
I checked my pockets for the 6th time. Naturally, I was nervous, anxious, fearful. For it is not every day that a man decides to leave his life behind. I checked and double-checked and found everything but my heart. Then I remembered that I tore that thing apart, ripped it out of my chest and threw it away. The steady beating only reminded me of a song that I hated, the song of my village, where music and rhythm, dance and mirth pulsed and pulsated through every corner. I hated my village. The old ones boasted of the river that gushed through our burg, of its healing quality unrivaled in this world, that just one sip could cure the most dire affliction. And in return, they worshipped this common creation. It was the center of our village and the lifeblood of our people, the bane of our existence as far as I was concerned. I hated my village. It was rumored that if any man would happen to fall into the river, he would be so consumed by its power and cease to be. But I had no time for such fables. I was old and wise enough to leave and taste of the fruit that lay beyond our borders. So I left. Through the old wooden gates and walked for miles and miles and miles until my back ached and my feet were sore, but this suffering paled in comparison to the shame I had endured. For I could never quite match the notes that they sang, and my questions were always met with fiery indignation. My heavy tongue made light of their flowery dogma, which left me as an outcast, a blasphemous monster. I hated my village, for it taught me to hate myself. By now I had no idea where I was, but in the distance I saw it, the ancient tree my people had scorned. I cautiously approached and picked the ripest fruit I could find. I held it like a treasure. Its shape resembled the hole in my chest. Its luster was bright and its skin tender. I stared, both in horror and amazement. The first bite was incredible. Its nectar was as fine wine. The flavor rushed through my system and jolted my spine. But before I could gnaw once more into its flesh, the fruit became bitter. My insides began to churn as it poisoned my stomach. A crack of thunder, bolts of lightning spewing from the heavens, and hundreds of dark clouds swirling above my head. The storm had escaped the captivity of my mind, and now it bore down upon me in all of its fury. I felt my body stiffen as it slammed to the ground, wheezing, trembling, and for the first time, wishing I could remember the sound of my heart throbbing, moving, living in me. But there was only quiet. I had sacrificed so much for silence, suffocated myself in solitude, and sank into a swamp of squalor and fear. And now, there was only quiet. And it was there, as I lay struggling in the mud, as I saw it, flashes of a distant world, images of war, destruction, hope, and fear. I felt a sound reaching to the recesses of my soul and heaving all forms of matter from the void I had left, carving new paths in a wasteland bereft of light. I managed, slowly, to get to my feet. The fruit's venom now surging through my anatomy. Night had fallen, but I had to get back. So I gathered all my strength and made for those old wooden gates. At dawn, I was greeted by a familiar chorus. It began as a murmur, but grew into a roar that roused the very spirit of nature. I heard the rivers shout, bathed in the warmth of the morning sun, and instantly I knew what had to be done. I entered a broken man, hunched and contrite. Though my exodus had been arrogant and upright, the villagers followed and marveled at this sight, but they dare not touch me. They knew what I had done. More wolves than sheep, they could smell my indiscretion. Salivating at the scent, they swarmed my carcass at the river's edge, hungry, not for justice, but retribution. Not for reconciliation, but punishment. For they had not yet grasped the reality that perfection's house was built with tattered bricks and feeble hands, that the filth of man was only fragmented beauty, and that forgiveness was born of fallen humanity. And I knew that my suffering was just. But I had not come this far to die. I had been through too much and was convinced that my pain would save my people. Without a moment's thought, I threw myself in. Immediately, I could feel life returning. The villagers stood and gasped in horror. Some shouted, others screamed, for what I had done was forbidden. But my vision had brought me to understand the age-old myth that he who fell into the river would cease to be, was not a warning against death, but a call to immortality. For in it a man would shed his old self and sacrifice what he was for what he should be. I felt my body changing and a new heart pounding, and then one by one the villagers dove in. They realized that this flood would not only cure sickness, it was the cure for all cures, salvation's promise. But as for me, I swam to the bottom of the river. To be fully consumed, I would lie on its bed, touch the hallowed earth that housed these waters celestial, and kiss the bedrock of life itself. Finally, I could exhale. Finally, my soul could rest, for I knew that I was home. I hated my village for as long as I can remember. But I've learned of mercy, that love is better. There is a tempest, raging with peace and foaming with tides of grace. We plunge that we may find rest, and in dying, we are saved. Yeah.
Serious?
Yeah. That was my story. I was in a place where I didn't know what I was doing there, you know, and I hated where I was. I hated people I was around, and it's not even for good reason. Because I didn't know what I was doing with my life, and I felt like if they hated me as well. So what I did, I just went out, try and find whatever, and it was reckless, huh?
I would have never think that about you, man.
It was reckless, but I think in that journey, I knew I was searching for something more than just pleasure.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, and coming down to the end is where I really found it, and I learned a valuable lesson.
Talk to me.
Your purpose is not just for you. You know, it's not just for you to find what you could do and for you to be happy. Plenty times, the purpose is about everybody else around you as well. Like, you see, everybody else was able to jump in and to experience the goodness. And that's what it's about sometimes. You have to be the one to step out.
Yeah.
And you might make mistakes. When you find the way, you know, you help other people to find their way too. So purpose for me starts with that journey and helping others to find their way.
What's crazy about that whole thing, right?
Talk to me.
As everybody always had something to say now, right?
Right.
Everybody always feel like if what they say is what you have to do. And sometimes you just feel like if you're not doing that, you're not doing anything now, right?
Wow.
But you see, just like how you learn something about purpose, my whole journey, right, I realized one thing. I realized everybody have a independent purpose, right? In the sense that even though, as you were saying earlier, your purpose is not just for you, it's for everybody. But your purpose is not tied into what somebody else did before.
Wow.
I can follow my father's purpose, it's mine now, right?
The human mind is a powerful thing. From it, we create and make daily decisions. We control our movements. It tells us where to go or not to go, what to speak or how to speak. It controls our actions, yet it can be the weakest link in the chain of our existence. If damaged, it can hinder our mobility, our freedom to move, think, create, are all affected when our mind is not fully functioning. Physical and or mental abuse, self-harm, drugs, illnesses can all affect our mind. But there is hope. There is a way out. As humans, we were created to dominate, not to be dominated. Yet, some of us freely give this up to others, and or others take it from us. How do we take control?
Don't turn back. No, don't turn back. Let your feelings lead you on. Let your heart reach out in song. Don't turn back. No, don't react. You have come so far, so strong. Let your heart